Hi everyone, and welcome back to another Clinimetrix 3 demonstration. Today we're going to focus on a brand new tool, which at the moment we're calling DIY. So for those of you that have used Clinimetrix in the past, you will remember the old snapshot tool, which was actually one of the original tools we developed for Clinimetrix 9 years ago when we first started coming up with the idea of using data in our medical practices. Today, that tool has become a bit of a staple across our user base, but we kind of looked at how it worked and what the opportunity was with it, and we decided to make some significant upgrades to it and allow the users to build their own profiles. So we've got some really nice features in this tool, and you can dive in and out of the data as you wish, set up your own table structures and your own pivot tables, all within the one module. And just mucking around with this ourselves, we've found a couple of nice little outputs that we found interesting in ways to kind of feed back to our doctors about things that we'd like them to do differently, and just nice tools to get a better understanding in a kind of simple Excel style table format within Clinimetrix. So what we started with is just the pivot table. There are a bunch of tools available, a bunch of option fields available for selection inside this measures metric. So right now we just have fees, percentage total, patients, average patient bill, and patients per hour. These are the kind of things you'd normally expect to be looking at just for financial metrics. If you want to add other things to the module, you can add, at the moment we have the dimension in the pivot table as doctor, but you can also add month, year, date, anything else you want, financial year, so and so on, MBS item, location if that's the case. So if you have doctors working across multiple locations, you can just select a location and then look at the profiles there. Month, year, we might just add as a descriptor. So now you can see for this doctor, there is all of the data for the period that we're looking at. I could just select one of those months, or I can drag that over here like a normal pivot table and then see that data spelled out month on month by doctor. So this is a really nice way of being able to extract information, tabular information from Clinimetrix at your own discretion in any way you want. Of course, all the usual tools on the left apply. So you can just look at, I only look at financial year to date. So we're going to limit that data to just July to January and July to January, which makes it a little bit more readable. And you can get that kind of information very quickly now. Doctor type, doctor name, MBS item codes, all controllable, not only from the filters, but also from the controls in the dimensions. So that's the new design. If you decide you don't want to have a pivot table, you want to sort in different ways, then you can actually select the table. And we're now looking at a very different way of seeing the data, but I can now sort by fees percentage total, patient volumes, etc. So lots of ways to view that data. If I turn that off, it makes it a little simpler because I'm only looking now at the actual raw 5 rows. I can also add in other interesting things. One of the ones that we were playing around with ourselves the other day was invoices, which is the number of attendances for patients. So patient volume and invoices is just the number of individual patients in this column, and the number of invoices that those patients have generated by doctor. And then we were looking at, interestingly, observations. How many observations have been created by those attendances? So I'm going to turn off the ones that are probably less relevant. Just leave the 3 columns. Oops, turned off one too many. And now we're looking at the number of patients who've attended, where there's been an observation against the number of invoices. So in this demo system, please remember that it's just a demo system. This first doctor here has seen 531 patients since the start of July. There's been 1,500 invoices, and he's done 2,700 observational measurements. Now that means he's doing at least one observational measurement, keeping in mind that can be systolic and diastolic, so that would equate for 2 measurements across those 530 patients and those 1,500 attendances, which is quite significant and obviously quite powerful. But at the other end of the reporting, we might look down here and say, this doctor has seen 711 patients, seen them nearly 2.5 times each patient, but there's only been 148 observations recorded. So that's something we might want to look at and consider. Does that affect the patient's clinical outcomes? Who are those patients who are not being seen? What are the risk factors that the practice and that those patients are likely to encounter if that doctor is not doing enough observations? And down here, you'll notice that there are no observations because these are nurses and other people, which we can turn off as you've seen previously. So just an interesting little way of playing around with the data. Similarly, we can look at things like scripts issued as well. So we might turn off observations and then see how many scripts are being issued by each one of these doctors and what that actually means for your practice and the relationship to any pharmacy you have locally. Lots and lots of those things. It's a very big picture view of the data, but it does give you a way to kind of bounce around and grab those kind of relevant bits of information that you may find surprising when you're reviewing the way that your practice operates. So that's the DIY tool. That's in the table, of course. You can also go back to the pivot table and play around with these things in the same way. I might want to put in other things, as we've seen with the month control, and you have a third dimension available as well. So brand new DIY tool. It can be just a simple table of revenue generated over time, absences, appointments missed, all those kinds of things. Or it can actually give you some more interesting values, as I've just demonstrated with things like observations, recordings, and scripts. Neat little tool, brand new for Clinimetrix in version 3. If you've got any questions, let us know.